creator of Naruto, Masashi Kishimoto, endured a grueling work schedule that pushed him to the brink of physical and emotional collapse. He routinely worked up to 20 hours per day, leading to several hospitalizations, and even missing the birth of his own child due to crushing deadlines. By the final arcs of Naruto, he admitted to feeling emotionally numb, simply trying to survive the demands of the series. Writing certain death scenes took a drastic personal toll on him, and he received constant death threats from fans over controversial plot decisions. Much of his work was inspired by feelings of deep isolation and insecurity, stemming from his youth and the constant comparisons to his twin brother. These personal struggles bled into Naruto's themes of loneliness, rejection, and the desperate need for acknowledgement. She was so terrifying that even cartel assassins refused to say her name out loud. Melissa La Diablo Calderon became one of the most feared women in cartel history because her crimes went far beyond gunshots and executions. Working with the Jalisco New Generation cartel, she targeted the most vulnerable, migrants, pregnant women, and the homeless, luring them with promises of safety or work before trapping them inside of makeshift clinics. Investigators say she performed crude C-sections to steal newborns for black market adoption, while the mothers were left to bleed out on the table. In other cases, victims were cut open and stripped of their organs, their bodies dumped or incinerated before corrupt medical contacts funneled their organs to wealthy buyers. Witnesses reported hearing screams through the walls at night, and bodies were found mutilated or missing several organs. Even hardened cartel enforcers were terrified of La Diablo, calling her the devil in human skin. When she was finally arrested, authorities believed dozens, maybe hundreds of her victims would never be found. 18-year-old Kylie Montero thought she was starting her future, newly graduated, 11 weeks pregnant, and dreaming of naming her baby girl Eleanor. But instead, she walked straight into a nightmare. Her boyfriend, 22-year-old Gregory Groom, had a violent history she tried to escape, even hiding in a domestic abuse shelter for 3 weeks. But like too many victims before her, she went back hoping he'd change. On August 6, 2025, during a late-night visit to his house, an argument turned terrifying when Gregory threw her to the ground, pulled her hair, and started strangling her. Knowing something was seriously wrong, she sent one last chilling text to her sister. "My phone is at 4%. If I die, it was Greg." Moments later, he reportedly stabbed her in the neck and chest, killing not just Kylie, but also the unborn child she was excited to raise. Instead of calling for help, he spent hours digging a grave in his own backyard, and around sunrise, he shoved her body into the shallow hole like trash. For 13 days, Kylie's family begged for answers while Gregory acted innocent, until police finally found her buried behind his house. He was arrested and has pleaded not guilty. In 2011, one of the most horrific workplace murders unfolded inside a Lululemon store in Bethesda, Maryland. When employees arrived one morning, they found the shop in pure chaos. Blood smeared across the walls and floor, broken merchandise scattered everywhere, and 2 female employees lying in the back room. One of them was 30-year-old Jana Murray, beaten and slashed beyond recognition. The other woman, her coworker Brittany Norwood, was tied up and claiming that 2 masked men had broken in and attacked them both. But investigators quickly realized her story didn't add up. Forensics revealed that Murray had sustained at least 331 separate injuries from a hammer, wrench, knife, rope, box cutter, and metal stand, and that she had been alive for all of them, her body showing signs of conscious struggle throughout the 15-minute assault. It turned out Norwood had killed her coworker after being caught trying to steal merchandise, then staged the entire scene and bound herself to make it look like a robbery. The crime completely shocked the nation, not just for its savagery, but for the fact that every blow, cut, and stab was inflicted by someone that Murray had entrusted to lock up the store beside her. In 2019, 18-year-old Denali Bremer from Alaska was messaged by a wealthy tycoon named Tyler, who promised her $9 million if she murdered someone and sent him the proof. Convinced the offer was real, Bremer recruited several friends whom she told she would split the money with, and they chose to target 19-year-old Cynthia Hoffman, a developmentally disabled girl who considered Bremer her best friend. The group lured Cynthia on a fake hiking trip to Thunderbird Falls, where they bound her with duct tape and led her to a remote spot. That's when one of the friends shot her in the back of the head while Bremer filmed the murder and sent the footage to Tyler, after which they dumped the body in the river. Authorities uncovered the plot through digital evidence, leading to multiple arrests. Tyler ended up being an unemployed catfisher named Darren Schillmiller who lived in his parents' basement in Indiana. He was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to 99 years in prison, the same sentence handed to Bremer. Cult leader Amy Carlson, aka Mother God, convinced her followers that she was God, a 19 billion-year-old being, and that she could heal people from cancer with the power of love. Amy claimed she had reincarnated 534 times, with her past lives including Cleopatra, Jesus Christ, Harriet Tubman, and Marilyn Monroe. But Amy's health began to rapidly decline after she herself was reportedly diagnosed with cancer in 2020. She was eventually paralyzed from the neck down and begged her members to take her to the hospital, but they refused, and she ended up dying in April of 2021 at the age of 46. When police were alerted, they found her mummified corpse in a state of decay that suggested she'd been dead for several weeks. It was stuffed in a sleeping bag wrapped with Christmas lights, with the face covered in glitter and both eyes removed. Authorities stated it was a makeshift shrine and ended up charging 7 members of the group with desecration of a corpse. For decades, people have theorized that the kids show Caillou is about a young boy who died from cancer. This is why Caillou has a bald head, a very small frame, and is always whining as if he's in pain. He constantly acts like a brat right in front of his parents and always seems to get away with it because they're sympathetic to his illness. Every episode also starts out with Granny telling Rosie a story about her brother Caillou, because according to the theory, he passed away before Rosie was old enough to develop lasting memories of him. So the entire show is centered around Grandma filling Rosie in on her deceased brother. Ever since Kurt Cobain turned the gun on himself in 1994, fans have speculated that he was actually murdered by his wife, Courtney Love. This was fueled by the fact that Courtney's own private investigator, Tom Grant, who she hired to find Cobain when he escaped from rehab, genuinely believes that she killed Kurt. For starters, Grant notes that Cobain injected himself with such a large dose of heroin before his death that there's no way he would have been able to pull the trigger. Grant also believes Cobain's note was doctored by Love to make it appear as a suicide note. Additionally, there was a lack of fingerprints from Kurt or others at the scene, suggesting that they may have been carefully removed to hide someone else's evidence. Grant also asserts that Love had a financial motive to kill Cobain, considering Kurt was planning to divorce her. Perhaps most shockingly, Kurt Cobain's own grandfather, Leland Cobain, believed that Kurt had been murdered, and he reportedly held this belief for the rest of his life until he died in 2014. Drake and Josh came to an abrupt end because Crazy Steve murdered Josh along with his parents and kidnapped Megan. He then fled with her to Seattle, changed their identities, and gave her Stockholm Syndrome, while brainwashing her into believing that they were siblings and their father was lost at sea. Crazy Steve was only crazy as a result of years of being neglected by his own family, but Carly helped fill in this void, allowing Steve to act far more sane while reigniting his passion for art. Crazy Steve also attempted to murder Drake and he survived, but suffered from serious brain damage and amnesia as a result of the attack. This is why when Drake visits Carly in iCarly, he asks her,
"Where's Josh? Where's Mom and Dad?"
Carly triggered the memory of his family, but he couldn't remember what happened to them. Eventually, someone recognizes Carly from her web show, finally prompting the arrest of mass murderer Crazy Steve. This is why Crazy Steve can be seen in a mental asylum in the iCarly spin-off Sam and Cat. There's a theory that states Breaking Bad is a sequel to Malcolm in the Middle, but Walter White isn't Hal, he's a grown-up version of Malcolm. For starters, for those who don't know, Malcolm's dad in the show, Hal, is actually played by Bryan Cranston, so it's completely reasonable to assume that Malcolm would grow up to look like him. In the sitcom, Malcolm is very fond of chemistry, and in one episode he even uses a chemistry set to create an explosion. Malcolm is also incredibly smart, stubborn, manipulative, and can develop complex plans just like Walter White. Not to mention, Walter is also estranged from his mother throughout Breaking Bad, alluding to the idea that Malcolm eventually wanted nothing to do with Lois. Additionally, Malcolm's grandfather happens to be named Walter, and he's the only family member who openly appreciates Malcolm's genius. So the theory posits that Malcolm changed his name to Walter as a tribute to his late grandfather, and at some point moved down to Albuquerque to escape from his crazy family.